guys, so in this problem, we're going to go over completing the square once again, but this is a challenging problem, so I need you guys to pay attention. Remember, guys, for rule number one, if you guys want to complete the square, you want to make sure that the constant is alone. Now, what is a constant again? A constant is a number that doesn't have an x. For example, the negative 20 is a constant, and the negative 20 needs to be left alone. So the easiest thing you can do is just add a 20, so it goes to the right side. So we currently have x squared minus x plus something. This is the square that we're going to complete, and that equals to positive 20. Now, rule number two that we need to follow is the coefficient of x squared is 1. Now, if you guys don't remember, whenever you don't see a number in front of a letter, that's because there's always a little invisible 1 there. So if you don't see a number, it's because there's a 1. In this case, we are good to go. That rule is already ready. Well, to complete the square, guys, we need to remember the properties of a perfect square. A perfect square goes like this. If you have an a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, you can simply factor this into a plus b to the power of 2. Well, this problem is almost identical to their property, and we can see what is equal to each other. These two are equal to each other, so therefore, can we assume that a is equal to x? Yeah, so we found our a right now. How do we figure out our b? Well, to find our b, guys, we can't do it here because this is empty. We can't guess. Well, we're actually going to focus on the middle problem, because they're equal to each other. Negative x equals to 2ab. And didn't we already discuss that the a is the same thing as writing an x in there, right? Because a equals x. Well, we are ready to leave letter b alone. Divide by 2, 2x. Divide by 2x. You left the b alone. B is equal to, the x's here cancel, and we had already discussed there's a 1 there, so our b is actually negative 1/2. So b is equal to negative 1/2. We found our second letter. Well, if we were to put this here, guys, look, that's b squared. So remember, b is negative 1/2. If we were to square it, what number is going to go there, guys? So negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 is actually positive 1/4. Positive 1/4. So let's rewrite this one more time, guys. We have x squared minus x plus 1/4 equals 20. There's a little problem here, guys, because you just added this 1/4 out of nowhere. You magically just put it there. And in math, that's not the way things work. If you're going to add a 1/4 out of nowhere, guys, you need to do it on both sides. And guys, remember how to add fractions? If that's a 20/1, that's a 1/4. The bottom, it's called the denominator, they have to be the same. So to make that 1 into a 4, we just multiply it by 4. What you do at the bottom, you do on top. So 20 times 4 is 80. 4 times 1 is 4. Now we can combine these two. So our real problem is x squared minus x plus 1/4 is equal to 81/4. So we're almost there, guys. Let's go back to this formula. Our formula stated we can actually already factor it this way. A plus b to the second power. You got your a, you got your b. Let's just change all of this to a factor, which will be x plus, what's my b? Negative 1/2 to the second power. And that equals 81/4. Are we okay? Now, just because I don't want to confuse you guys, plus and minus, couldn't I just say basically x minus 1/2? Minus 1/2, same thing, right? Well, let's begin solving then. Let's get the square root. When you find the square root of one side, we do it on the other as well. There we go. And if you guys don't remember, you can also treat the square roots individually. And what I mean by that is when you have a fraction, you can do it to each one individually. So we have actually x minus 1/2 is equal to, what's the square root of 81? That's a 9. Remember, positive or negative 9. It could be either one, because 9 squared is 81. Negative 9 squared is also 81. It could be both. What's the square root of 4? Same thing, plus or minus 2. And now, because we have two possible options, we're actually talking about a plus or minus 9/2. So we have two different problems we could work on. Let's write both of them. So we have x minus 1/2 is equal to 9/2, or x minus 1/2 is equal to negative 9/2. So here we go. Let's start solving. Plus 1/2, plus 1/2. Let me just write it next to each other right here. Well, remember how to add fractions? The top gets added, the bottom stays the same. So x is equal to 10/2. 10/2, which is the same thing as 5. Or, let's do this one, guys. Plus 1/2, plus 1/2. So it's x equals, what's negative 9 plus 1? That's negative 8/2, which is the same thing as negative 4 right there. And that's how you solve completing the square. But there's actually an easier way to do this. It's just that maybe Khan Academy will ask you for steps. I got to show you both ways. If I were to factor this problem here, if I were to graph it, x squared minus x, it's right here. Look, x squared minus x minus 20. If I were to graph the original, here's how you can check you're doing it right. My x is negative 4. My x is positive 5. Aren't those the numbers, the answers that I got on the completing the square? Negative 4 and positive 5. So that's how you know you're doing it correctly.